in also the same topic that we were talking about earlier, that the Yeridus HaNeshama down here below is hinted in the pasuk of the Mayan Ganim. The Mayan Ganim is talking about how the Neshama is above. In Gan Eden, Ganim is in the word Gan Eden. The Neshama is the Mayan and Nahar that's responsible for bringing godliness down into the level of into levels of Gan Eden, the multiple levels of Gan Eden, and then it comes down to Be'er Mayim Chayim. It's like a well that the waters become purified underwater, like we're going to talk about it some more, and then it reaches an even higher level of V'noizlim B'levonim. All this we're going to explain as we go on about the descent of the neshama down here and the way it reaches an ascent. So we're holding in the third page of the Maimer, page 422, last paragraph on the page. Yet Misham, from the level of the way it was Mayan Ganim, the way it was the spring in Gan Eden, Misham Yardan Neshama Lamata B'Yirida Gedoyla. From there, the Neshama descended down below at a great descent. Me'ikre Rama L'Biram Mikta, from a high place, from a high building to a deep pit and dungeon. Ulamata Nikra Neshama V'Shem Be'er. The way the Neshama is down here below, it's called a well. Not like in Gan Eden where it's called a spring, a mayan, but down here it's called a well. The difference between a spring and a well is a spring is made, like we said before, b'dei shamayim. It's something that Hashem makes the spring. But the be'er, yesh b'tfisas yidei adam. It does have a human being's involvement, that a person actually makes a well, digs a well. Like it says in the continuation of Psukim, it speaks about the well being dug. Uses two different expressions for digging. So we see that there is an involvement of a human being. So seemingly something that's created and made by heaven should be higher than something that has human involvement. So he says, even though it descends down here below to such a degree that there is human involvement down here, still in all the Yerida, Zohi Yerida Gedoylam, the Nefachta be this whole descent that we described, that the Neshama went through Barasi, Yitzarta, until Nefachta, till you blew it into me, until it descends to this low world, that there's nothing lower than it, until it's in my innards. Like it says, you guard her within me, in my deepest levels. Yes, so we could say the word bekirbi, meaning within me, could also indicate how low it is. Yes, with using the word atameshamra bekirbi, why doesn't he just use maybe a normal, more common word, atameshamra be? Why bekirbi? He says with this he's hinting at the idea of descending bekerev haaretz. Bekerev haaretz, we've had in Chassidus, means in the innards of the earth, in the earth itself, the most lowest level, like the lowest, that there is nothing lower than it. So here we're going to compare it back to the idea of the well. Just like a literal idea of a well. That the waters reach the well through passing through the different channels, the quote-unquote veins, the underground veins. So that itself shows that it's low, it's coming from the ground, it's something having to do with the earth and earthiness. And not only that, in addition to that, that the water within a well could be like what's called the ladders of the river Pros, that the Gemara discusses, that there is a case where the wells or the river of Pros can become a source for a higher ground that's higher than the Euphrates and the river of Pros, that it gives forth waters over there, and under certain conditions. The Gemara talks about that it could be the waters that drip in. In other words, the rainwater is more than the moving water from the spring. Under such a circumstance, if the rainwater is not stable, not static, so then it is not a kosher mikveh. The only time when it's a kosher mikveh is if the rainwater is static. The Gemara talks about it in B'chayres. So v'oz eina metayrim, when the rainwater is more than the well water, so then it's not metayr. In other words, the point of this in Ruchnius means that sometimes the things from this world can overwhelm the neshama than the way it comes from out of this world. The Tmura, instead of the fact instead of the way the neshama was above. So by the neshama was godliness was a given. It was the accepted thing. It was the obvious thing. And existence, that there are things that are other than godliness, that was something novel. That was something that you said, oh wow, there's something other than Hashem. But through the neshama descending down here below, by human being down here, it's a given that the existence exists. When it comes to godliness, that's a novel thing. Oh, there's also an Eibishter. Wow, that's something novel. That's something a chiddush. Okay, do a gamba pirish lashon Tanya, like it's also known in the explanation of the expression in Tanya at the beginning of Perek Beis. That the godly soul is mamish, a part of heaven above, meaning the noisef la pirish, the mamish hainolakus mamish, in addition to the meaning. That what's it mean chelik el kamemal mamish? Don't think that chelik el kamemal is an exaggeration, etc. But it's literally, in other words, chelik el kamemal is a quote from a pasuk. Comes the word mamish, or Alter Rebbe used to say, it's mamish elakus. It's not just an interesting expression or whatever. That's the simple meaning of what Alter Rebbe is trying to say in Tanya by using the word mamish. The mamish loshen mamoshes. There's another meaning in why the Alter Rebbe adds the word mamish over here. It's from the word substance. That the neshama, from being a spiritual, godly entity, descends to become something that has substance to us, that's tangible. So low does it come down till it's enclosed in the animal soul in such a way that it becomes completely one with it. And through being clothed in the nefesh habahamis, so the nefesh halakis is also able to become clothed in the body, and therefore also interact and become involved with the nefesh halakis' allotted portion in the world that it's supposed to elevate. Move and like it's also understood from what's brought down, explained in Tanya. In the name of the Eitz Chaim, that the neshama on its own does not need to be fixed up. It didn't come down here for its own repair. The entire reason that the neshama descended down here below, or it did not descend down here below, only to refine the body and the animal soul, that they need to be repaired and helped out. So to be able to be a refinement of the body and the animal soul, so the godly soul has to become clothed in them. Like it's explained over there, it's only when the nefesh halakis is enclosed in them. If the nefesh halakis were to stand apart from the body, stand apart from the animal soul, so then it wouldn't change the animal soul, it wouldn't elevate the body. According to the camel, that is the load. So Hashem doesn't give us something that's beyond our capability. I only ask of the Yidden only what is their capability to do. And therefore, it's within the capability of the nefesh halakis, when it's enclosed in the nefesh habahamis and the body, to refine them. So it's a great descent. But, as we started saying right away at the beginning, but this descent is for the sake of an ascent. The descent of the neshama down here below is for the sake of an ascent, like we said before. That's how it rises to an even more elevated level than the way the neshama was before its descent down here. That's what it says afterwards. A well of living waters, even though it's a level of a well, the well is underground. The well is, like we said, human involvement in it. Still, in all nasis, it becomes living waters. The waters of the spring, it's possible their source comes from these ladders of the river pros that like cause it to go upwards. And there's a possibility that the rainwater should be more than the spring water, but only through passing through the veins of the earth. Can they be living waters? What is the idea and what's the function of the living waters? The Maim Chaim Davke Matarim Kolatum is only the living waters are the ones that could purify from all types of impurities ad letumas avi avois hatuma, until the impurity of the grandfather, not just the father of Tumah, but the grandfather of Tumah, the worst type of Tumah, meaning the Tumah of coming in contact, or the Tumah of a dead body through mixing the spring water with the ashes of the Paradum. Through the purification from this Tumah, the severe Tumah of contact with a dead body, we bring closer the true and complete Geula. Why? What's the connection between being metayr someone from a tumas mess with bringing together and bringing closer the true and complete Geula? Like it says, the spirit of Tumah I will remove from the earth. This is affected through the avoid of a person. That dafke the person does it. So we that they dug it up, that the person's digging is what accomplished this. In the similar vein, it's also concerning the neshama. The ascent of the neshama through its descent, it's through the service of the person in this low world, the avoid of digging it. So that's what brings the aliyah that comes after the yirida. And the same thing, the gula amitis vashlema comes by the tada from the tumas mess, because the entire idea of tumah and mess has to do with the chait of Eitz Hadas. By being metahir from the tumah of tumas mess, we are undoing the source of all ideas of galus and leading to a time where there won't be any tumah anymore. Last paragraph on the page. Now he continues in what it says also, that the well, the officers or ministers dug it, and the higher ones amongst the nations, they dug it. The idea of digging is specifically, when does one dig? One digs when it's something is on the bottom, something is low down. That's when you need to have the idea of digging. Only through because it's so low, that's why you need to dig. Because it's so low, it happens through the officers and ministers, the officers and ministers, that's called the brain that's in the nefesh. Okay, like the simple meaning of the idea, the mitzad teva adam, because of that, out of the nature of a person, especially Yidden are called Adam. They are specifically called Adam because I'm likened to above. The brain rules over the heart by the nature of its birth. In other words, this is a natural thing. It's a natural human condition, and especially by Yid, that the brain rules over the heart. For that reason, the brain is called an officer, a minister. It controls, it rules. Top of the next page, Kedisa B'Zoyar, it's brought down the Zoyar. What's it mean? That the officers and ministers dug it. This is talking about father and mother that gave birth to her. What is father and mother in Chassidus, as we've had not too long ago? So that's talking about the intellect, is the father and mother that give birth to the emotions. In the avoid of a person, what is this level of the sarim that gives birth? That is contemplating on all the creations, like Morabah Masecha Hashem, Hagodla Masecha Hashem, and contemplating the power of the doer and the thing that's done, Hashem's power that's invested in the world, until he contemplates in the root and the source of that power of Hashem that's enclosed in the creation, until he reaches to the concept of speech the way it is by Hashem. From Hashem's speech is where it came down, the different aspects of the power of the maker in the thing that's made, the power of Hashem, the way it's enclosed in the creations. Like the Chazal say, with the 10 utterances, the world was created. So we see that's the source of the power of Hashem within the creation. Until he reaches the root and the source of speech. Like it's explained in Tanya, the detailed chain descent of speech. That's in the soul of a person. That source is in the desire that's in the heart. That Alter Rebbe explains that the speech comes from the thought, and the thought is derived from the person's emotions. So therefore, the same thing Kaviyachol B'Hashem shall derech zeu gam l'maylo. That is in a similar vein that we could, even though Basar Mars Nivra Olam with the 10 utterances, we can go back even and see that there's the level of Hashem's thought and there's the levels of Hashem's emotions, that these are all the root and the root and the source for the entire creation. That's what it says, that I will see your heavens, the actions of your fingers, the moon and the stars that you set. That the person contemplates all the matters of the creation, how Hashem created them and where they came from and so on. That's why this is called digging. Just like in digging we reveal someone that's concealed and covered over. So through this contemplation we reveal the power of the doer that's covered and concealed within the creation. And from that afterwards comes about the digging of the divei. So once we've discussed about the sorim, that's the intellect, so what's in the divei? The divei hemamidas shebalev. I guess the emphasis on the word nadiv. Nadiv is the heart giving and so on. That's the emotions in the heart. Liba poligum kol shaifin, and the heart spreads out to all sides. In other words, once it reaches from the intellect to the emotions, so it doesn't just stay static and get stuck in the emotions, but the heart spreads out to all sides. That now through the heart being on the same page, so then it comes down in action, both in turning away from bad and doing good. That's also where it says that the divei are the ones that dug it, because is in the word like extinguished coals. Just like extinguished coals, you don't see its connection with the fire. The same thing, that the actions is something that doesn't look like it's connected with something good and high and lofty. But when it's chafarua through the digging, we affect that should be the idea of the givingness, the idea of the emotions should be manifest over there. Zel Gamash Kosev Medrash Chazal. This is also what Chazal, it's written, Nedivi Am Koyala Avis, that the Nedivi who is the Nedivi that the Pasuk is referring to? It's going on the forefathers. It's going on Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. How come? Because Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov also represent the idea of Midas. The Indian Avis, who begimel on Midas Chagash, Shim Koilim Kol on Midas, the Avis. As we know, as Avram is Chesed, Yitzchak is Gvura, Yaakov is Tiferes, and Achim. So they include all the Midas. These are always the three main Midas, and everything else, like the Alter Rebbe says right away in Perek Gimel and Tanya, all the other Midas are just branches and offshoots of those three primary Midas. From this comes down also an action. Through this avodah of the Chafarua Sarim, Karua, Nediveam, Karua, and so on, till it comes into action. So then we make a home for the Eibishter down below, but even the mitzvahs of Senecha, in a way that it's like the mitzvahs of your will, like it'll be done when Mashiach comes, that will be fulfilling the mitzvahs like Hashem wanted us to fulfill the mitzvahs. Though these days, the dir b'tachtoinim, the mitzvahs Senecha, all these things are concealed. So how do we call it digging? It's still called the idea of digging. Like it's understood from what's explained in the Mamar Mudrab Marash. Through the actions of the mitzvahs in these days, everything that has to come down comes down, though it's concealed. It's like a person that they gave him a big chest, and in the chest is a great treasure. And not only did they give him a chest that the treasure is inside, but and they also placed in his hand, they gave him the key to this treasure chest. All he has to do is open up the chest to avail himself from it. So in a similar vein, we have all the hamshachas and the entire idea of the dir b'tachtoinim and the entire concept of mitzvah senecha, except it's concealed. And since we possess it, so therefore we have this level and we have it in our possession. We have it as something that we own, even though it's only going to be revealed later on. Bottom paragraph is this is what he continues. That they pour out from Lebanon. Through this descent that Neshama comes down here. And it does its avoided down below. That we had also in the previous Maimer, the Semshach. The Levanon, Hainu, Lev, Nun, or Lamed Beis Nun. What's the idea of Lamed Beis Nun 32 and 50? Shem Lamed Beis Nesivus HaChachma is going on the 32 paths of Chachma, like it says in Sefer Yitzira. The Nun Shari Bina, and the 50 gates of Bina. But the Rebbe adds in this Maimer over what we had in the previous Maimer, the Hemshach, Kifi Shem Beteva Achas. We have both of these advantages. We have both of these great levels. The way they're combined in one word, and the way they're combined in one word, it's obviously understood. It's much more powerful than the way they are separate, because the way they are separate, they might only be just, this is Chachma, this is Bina, they're not interrelated. But combined in one word, it's something that transcends just the separateness of Chachma or Bina. Yes, and even more so, there's the idea of the flowing, like we said also in the previous Maimer about the Semshach, that is the level of the mazel. Noislim is from the word mazel. It's a level of keser that's beyond Chachma Bina. The Inyan Zem, Nimshach Davkai, the Anisham Kvishem Lamata. This level, both the level of Lev Nun, the 32 paths of Chachma, and the 50 gates of Bina, and the way they're combined together, and that you have the level of Mazel, which is higher than all of that, the level of Keser. That's only brought down through the neshamas, the way it is down here below. V'loyai down neshamas l'mayla, not through neshamas above, which is only the level of Mayin Ganim. In the level of Mayin Ganim, they don't have the Be'er, the Be'er Mayim Chayim, which is chafaru asarim, karu nediviyam, etc. And tomorrow we'll speak more about this, where we see this in other Mamarim, this concept from the Frierdiker Rebbe that this is the neshamas down here have this advantage over the neshamas above.